Okay, so normally when we start a new podcast recording, we say Bismillah. But I'm reluctant to just say Bismillah and then straight away follow that with Trump has won the election. Come on, the lads. What are your first reactions?
I was predicting this, to be
I think you know
honest.
what I was thinking. This I was thinking the last time I asked you,
Mm,
you said Trump's going to win, and you said with such conviction. I thought
mm.
Bobby's boys won it.
Yeah, he's won it. I don't. Do you know what? The reaction. It seems like the Democrats, the Team Harris, they're like finding out why did we lose? We had it so good. This has been ages. We beat him once. Why can't we do it again? So
Mm,
for them, they've got big questions to ask. For Trump, he's like, watch this space. Watch this space. Those that doubted me, I'm coming after you.
mm.
Those that, David Lammy,
Oh
he
yeah,
is he is really quivering in his boots at the moment, right?
he's
Thinking, you know what?
cracking it.
I called him a Nazi at the end of the day. So how am I going to get out of this one?
Yeah.
There's all these kind of personal issues, but tomorrow in the when the parties are over, in Trump's in tray is going to be there's going to be three things in his in tray, I think. Number one, China. Number
Mm,
two, China. And number three, China. He's
okay.
been brought in just to deal with China.
What
That
makes you
is
say
it.
that?
You see, China is 15 years ago, Britain used to be had a larger economy than China. Okay. Now, Chinese economy is seven times greater than Britain's. Okay. Just a few years away from getting the technology to have the quantum computer. Okay,
Mm,
and there's a race. So if we imagine the Cold War situation, first man to the moon, we've got to think, okay, what these guys competing in at the moment? One is quantum computing, and the other area, you see that America's really, really paranoid about is microchips.
mm.
The production of microchips, the design of them happens in America, the production is in Taiwan. That is not good enough. So Biden, in his tenure, he announced that the chips will be made in America. Okay, Elon Musk, he's effectively the vice president. Elon Musk
Though there
is.
were talks about him being given a high position somewhere,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
apparently
yeah,
Trump was impressed with his sacking of so many employees on Twitter to lean
yeah,
it down, and
yeah,
he
yeah.
was is it suggesting that maybe Elon takes a position in the government to do the same there.
That's right. So the manufacturing side, they want to take everything away from China. They want American first, and they
Mm,
want the production. And now these factories for microchips, they are going up all over the place. You can watch many videos on this topic or read about it. But they're investing in loads, like 50 billion investment just by the government, by
wow.
that chips bill. And then on top of that, companies like Micron that people don't even hear of, they've committed to 100 billion, right? Google has just to power these computers and AI technology and this kind of thing, they've kind of effectively bought a nuclear power plant. So when you're looking at what's happening in the landscape and where the competition is, America's right, gloves off, we're going to beat China.
Okay,
Every single thing is
related to China. Revert
related
to
to
China.
China. All roads go to China. So you may
Okay.
have heard that. I don't know whether it was true. I didn't have time to research this, but if it was, Donald Trump said, Imran Khan, he's my friend. I'm going to release him from prison and these kind of things, right? There's a video that was
I
circulating. Now,
heard about this. I
yeah,
heard
so
about
if,
this, and a lot of PTI members were like really happy and celebrating
yeah, yeah. So
when
if
Trump won.
if this comes true, and that is what it was actually said, you can see why Donald Trump's doing it is to annoy China because of the CPAC Guarda port situation. He would then sway into that and cripple China to a degree to scupper their plans. Um, Gaza, Israel, right?
Mm,
There again, the Americans, their strategy is right. security for that region, let Saudi deal with it, let Turkey deal with it, let the Iranians deal with it. We need to move on because China is the main player here. We need to get to China. All roads at the moment, American establishment thinking is all roads to China. Which guy that would be able to fight that fight is someone that's unpredictable,
Mm.
yeah, who's committed to American first, who's going to plow money into this. He's promised $5 trillion,
Mm.
yeah, in his time that he's going to just print. And Elon Musk said that he's going to reduce the size of the government expenditure by 2 trillion. So, in other
Mm.
words, you know how we talk about big government and small government? They're going to make a tiny government. So, who's
Mm.
the real winners will be? It'll be the billionaires. It's going to be the
Mm.
elite.
Mm.
So, I think there's a lot going on
Okay.
here. This is a momentous
Interesting.
occasion. It's bigger than Trump. There's a lot going on here in terms of the elite. This is a big victory for the elite.
Mm.
Um, Stock markets rose,
Yeah,
a lot
I
when
noticed
Trump
that.
won. So for them, they are very happy about this. Very happy about this. Europe is jittery.
Mm.
Is really jittery about this because
Well, yeah,
Trump.
well, the thing is that
Mm,
Trump already told them that if we're going to contribute towards this alliance of ours, then you need to contribute. I think it's 2% towards the defense and stuff.
yeah,
And a lot of them didn't. But Barry, since you're out and about, I know you're on your evening jog and running, and we made you stop for a bit. So to warm you up a little bit,
I'm
tell
still
us, what are your
like,
thoughts? Should we even care about Trump being elected as president? Is it important for us? In what context is it important? Should we in the West be bothered or take an interest? Should we as Muslims take an interest? How does it affect us, if at all?
I think two things that for me was that why the people took an interest. One was similar to the UK elections, where actually there's a massive cost of living crisis in America. So
Mm.
the biggest thing was that Trump or Harris, the promise was we're going to make lives better. And again, deceivingly, we're going to control the borders. Because I think the people are really feeling day to day living. Energy prices they were talking about really going up. People really finding it hard to have their daily meals. So I think that was number one. And by Trump coming in, really, is it going to make a difference? Um, that's something we need to think about. For me, though, on that issue is there is a massive cost of living crisis, whether it's in the UK or in America, and it's something that we are going to have to get used to, and that's a good discussion to open up. Secondly, for me, is that the biggest thing I would say that affects the Muslims, whether it was the UK elections or in America, was the issue of Palestine, the foreign policy, and we saw both Harris and Trump really play, and it was quite sad actually, in this whole thing, Muslims for Trump, and how they're
Mm.
using this whole the sentiments of the Muslims to say, okay, we feel the issue of Palestine, whereas their actions are something else. So whether it was the
Mm.
Tories or the Labour or the UK elections or the American elections, are they, whether it's Trump, Harris, Tories, Labour, are they really going to make a difference to Palestine?
You know what? Something you said there just kind of made me chuckle because every person who I've had a conversation with regarding the American elections, and what really made me laugh, well, in sadness, I suppose, and disappoint me was there are so many people who are Labour supporters, so many people who are Tory supporters, both Tory and Labour supporters. Whenever I spoke to them and asked them about the situation in Gaza and the situation in Palestine and how, if the elections would have an effect, you know what their response was? It's an illusion of choice, right? That's not going to make any difference. And I thought back to myself, we just recently had our elections. This is what we were saying to you about your parties. But nobody wanted to listen. Well, they didn't want to listen at the time. But they're saying exactly the same thing about the American elections as people had observed about the British elections, in the words of George Galloway, two cheeks of the same backside, right? And when it comes to the issue of Gaza, we noticed that when it came to the rallies and the pitching of the likes of Trump and Harris, it was a case of who can love Israel the most. They were like putting themselves forward, right? In that way that, oh, I know I love Israel more than you do, and they were, no, I love Israel more than you do, and people were saying like, okay, well, the analysts on some of the news agencies such as Al Jazeera, there's a guy called Marwan. He was saying, although Trump is somebody who is against war for whatever reason, whether it's economically because he's a businessman or whatever the reason, his stance towards protecting Israel is no different to others. But it still remains to be seen what his strategy will be, because it's unlikely he will want to expand the war into more of a regional war, which it already is to an extent, but in the way that Netanyahu would ideally want. So he's not going to be supportive of, so Trump isn't going to be supportive of Netanyahu as much as Biden and Harris were in terms of expansion. So this is going to be interesting to see. But just on that note, whilst we're on the subject of Gaza, I was looking at stats this morning, and it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. In the West Bank, not even in Gaza, in the West Bank of Palestine, this is not under Hamas, this is under the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Authority.
Mm-hmm.
751 people have been killed in the West Bank by Israeli forces and the illegal settlers since last October. 751. 11,500 people have been detained in the West Bank under their military detention. That means you're not offered any respite, no lawyer, no charges, you're just in prison because they can do that. And a lot of them will be minors, right? In Gaza, 43,391 people have been martyred. Now, let me put that into a different perspective. For those of you who are watching from, let's just say, Burton-on-Trent, hometown, right? The population of Burton in 2021 was 76,270. So 43,391 is 57% of Burton gone. Now imagine if you're living in a house with family, that's more than half of your family members gone. There are a lot of families, full families wiped out in Gaza. But here, if everybody was to imagine it, because there's no discrimination in that regard when Israelis throw their bombs, Christians, Jews, whatever, they'll go for everybody. 17,029 children, 102,346 people have been injured, 180 journalists, 233 UN staff members, many thousands missing under the rubble. 70% of those 43,000 who are killed are women and children. 70%. And obviously you've got 132 journalists as well. But here's something else that's important to understand. Whenever there's something else going on, like an important event anywhere else, Israel takes that opportunity to do something more because the cameras aren't on them all the time. Other people are taking the news. For the last month or so, America has been taking the news because of the elections. And here's what was declared on the day of the elections by the IDF. The IDF announces the division of the northern Gaza Strip into two parts has been completed. That means they've annexed a part of the Gaza Strip. Okay, they've annexed the land. It's been a land grab. He continues, and we're getting closer to the complete evacuation of the northern part from civilians and terrorists. This time, there is no intention to allow the residents of the northern Gaza Strip to return to their homes, and that humanitarian aid will regularly enter the southern Gaza Strip, since there are no more civilians left in the north of Gaza City. So let me repeat that again. He says this time there is no intention to allow the residents of the northern Gaza Strip to return to their homes, and that humanitarian aid will regularly enter the southern Gaza Strip, since there are no more civilians left in the north of Gaza City. So he's saying anybody who's left in the northern Gaza City, we're going to treat them as, they're gone.
No, that's ethnic cleansing right there, isn't it?
It has been for a while, but how can you not get any clearer than that?
I think at the same time, I on a positive note, that whether it was in America or whether it was the UK elections, the people are waking up. So there was a very big call within America that how can we support Trump or Harris when they are supplying the weapons, America, to Netanyahu to kill our brothers and sisters in Palestine. So I think the people are waking up that no matter which government comes into power, that at the end of the day, their policy, their foreign policy, will not be based on any humanitarian value or any humanitarian basis. It'll be always based on their personal benefit and interests. And this shows, it was disgusting that actually, when it comes to your vote banks, when it's Michigan, when you got the strong Muslim vote, look how you'll start to appeal to the Muslim voters. Do you really care? No, you don't. And the people, they realize this. And actually, when it comes to the strong Jewish vote, actually, you'll start to appease them. And I think the people are waking up wherever, whether it's the Muslims in the UK or America, and generally even non-Muslims, are seeing the hypocrisy, are seeing the double standards, are seeing the injustice. And the question is, do they really care? And people have reached the answer, no, they don't. Whether that's
Mm.
domestic policy or foreign policy.
I think one thing that's really obvious here is people are looking at the next president of the US as if that's going to be the Messiah who's going to save the people of Palestine, which is which is the bizarre thing that we have to reconcile in our minds and contemplate on and think, well, why? And the bottom line is nothing's going to change because we haven't changed. If the Arabs are being slaughtered in Palestine, it's the duty of the fellow Arabs and Muslims around there to put the foot down and take the action.
100%.
That's the bottom line.
I did that.
I think with Donald Trump, he effectively handed Jerusalem to
Yeah, by moving the
the
embassy from Tel
Zionists.
Aviv.
That's right, when he
Mm.
was in power last time. So this time, I think he's going to give a few handouts. His policy advisor, which is his son-in-law, on this issue in particular, is that Jared Kushner. When you
Well,
listen to
they
his
want to annex the whole
speeches,
of the West Bank.
yeah, exactly. So he sees this as a whole deal. He's not interested in
Mm.
history. When you listen to his speeches, he's not in his history, anyone's sentiment, who's got, emotional attachment to any land or any mosque or any place of worship. He's not interested at all. He looks at it as, okay, there's unemployment, right? I'll get you jobs over there. Go over there and I'll get you a job, right? We'll put a factory on for you and then move the people out. His thinking
Mm.
is like that when you listen to him. So I think that's the approach that they're going to take regarding this. But I think they want to keep it a forever war. They always want that conflict. I honestly believe that. They've had 75 years of this. They could have settled this a long time ago. They just
Mm.
do not want to settle it. They just keep on, right? Anyone who has got any Jazba from the northern areas of where the Ummah was. So you're talking Chechnya. Anyone from the southern area, the Yemen, yeah, from Kashmir side, anyone with any Jazba who wants to pick up a gun and go, come here, you'll find your martyrdom. It's like it's a good way for all the regimes to have a secure and a reason for security and a reason to fight war on extremism. Okay, that is why Saudi Arabia is demanding a security alliance with America, right? They want this, A, to secure their own seat, and to keep a very tight grip on the people, very tight grip on the people. And that is the whole agenda for that area, right? There is
Because
no
if there's
sense.
war and if there's war and there's conflict, then there's less likelihood of an uprising from within the population against the
Because
rulers. Is
the
that what you're
people
saying?
that have got sensation of this and want to do something, and they go down that route, it's like the steam coming out of the kettle. It's letting the pressure go
Mm.
constantly. So they don't mind this. I don't think. Honestly, they could have settled a lot of things a long time ago. At the who's got the most leverage over Zionism is America, right?
Mm.
Because of the weapons. They've got the leverage. So they don't use that leverage. Why? It's you got to think why, right? There are reasons behind why they don't pull
Mm.
the plug on these things. Maybe, yeah, the Zionists have got leverage as well, through the banking system and finance world or what
Well,
have
they
you.
must have something quite
Mm.
significant because you got Israel and
But
America on one side and the rest of the world in the United Nations on the other side,
yeah, but to
and they're still
say
stuck to their guns.
Yeah, but to say that, the
Pardon the pun.
Zionists have got, full control of America, or, I don't buy that totally. There is influence definitely, but not totally. But you know, the
I don't
other
know. I think
element,
it's the United States of Israel now.
yeah, because of APAC and these establishments. But you know, with another thing about the Muslim psyche, and especially if you're living in America and you voted, I think, you know, a mother whose son comes back and he's in primary school and he says, "Mom, am I a he or a she?" Right?
Mm.
She's going to vote Trump. She is going to vote Trump, right? Because he is full on against all of this, right?
Yeah, he
He
is.
is
Yeah.
anti woke, right? So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, he'll go against it. It's like here, are you going to vote for Nigel Farage because he's anti woke, but he's
Mm.
anti-migrant as well? Do you see?
Mm.
So where is it that we're looking
That's why they're
for in our
pals, aren't they?
interests? That's right. So our and in my thinking is, like brother Ibrahim mentioned, the Muslims would have thought, okay, do you know what? We want to show Harris and Genocide Joe a lesson here, get them out of power. We'll
Mm.
influence in the Michigan state where we got a bit of influence, we'll swing it for Trump. Fine, you did it. Now, if you read the newspapers today about what the Palestinians are feeling about Trump coming into power, they are saying, oh no. Do you
Mm.
see? So the Muslims were thinking over there one thing, but the Muslims in Palestine thinking, damn, this is going to be far worse because they
Mm.
remember what he did last time, right?
Mm.
So,
Mm.
but the point is, I think from an Ummah's perspective, from our perspective, I think we've got to step back and keep out the headlines, so to speak, in the sense that I go back to my first point, let America and China battle it out. Let them battle it out. When we say about NATO and you know, Ukraine, most of the NATO troops, American NATO troops, are actually in Japan. They're not in Europe. 50,000 in Japan, right? And they got about 20 something thousand in South Korea. So when you
Mm.
think, hang on, these guys, they're tightening the noose around the neck of China. That's exactly what they're doing. Let them do it, because when they get into that situation, we've got breathing space to think. Because if you notice over the last few years, there has been an agenda against Islam or Muslims, but it's not as been as intense and as aggressive and as, you know, creative as before. I would say,
Mm.
you know, before they were
Well, it's just
full on,
yeah. Right
full
now,
on.
it's in your face, and they're not even trying to hide it. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's become so obvious there are other people getting involved and calling it out. Barry, before we go, how do you translate the coming of Trump back into presidency, and should we be hopeful?
I think to conclude, for me, the biggest thing is that the whole world has realized that actually the Western governments, the Western parties, the political parties, they don't care about humanity. You know, for us as Muslims, politics is to take care of the affairs of the people. And we can see now, and the whole world, Muslim, non Muslim, everyone has realized that actually Western governments, Western politics is not for humanity. Domestic policy, foreign policy, um, you know, the whole thing about cutting the winter allowances for the elderly or the foreign policy on Palestine. Bobby's point, they can go and chase whoever they want, whether it's China, whether it's supporting India, whatever it is. You know, we don't need to go into the depth of the politics. But the conclusion is they will go what benefits them, not humanity. And my question is, as a Muslim ummah, as a community living in the West, as a global ummah, it's time for us actually not to put our eggs in their basket or to chase them, but actually to start thinking, how are we going to look after the affairs of the people? And I think we're on a good road where we are speaking up, we are coming together and using the platforms we have access to. And like I said, when it was UK elections, I think we've got to stop putting our eggs in the political party's basket and carry on raising our voices, doing what we're doing. And you'll see that this momentum is building now. And inshallah, really show the world that the only way justice will be served is through actually a cleaner way of politics, and that is the Islamic politics.
Perfectly said. Thank you very much, everyone. And on that note, we'll call it a night, and we'll see you in the next one.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.